Hello and welcome to the Curiosity and Consciousness podcast. The intention of this podcast is to help you to open your mind, get curious about yourself and raise your consciousness levels. Through these conversations, we hope that you will go on an inward journey to discover the truth of who you are and become the conscious creator of your life. I am your host, Karen Maloney, and I work as an inside-out coach, mentor and guide, helping women to revolutionize their internal chatter and create a life they love. Listen to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or whatever platform you choose. And be sure to like, subscribe, review, and share the podcast. Check out my website as well, soulpowerlight.com, for more info. Hello everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining for another episode. It's me, Karen Maloney, and I'm delighted to be here with you today. And again, it's going to be a solo episode with myself. And this week I'm going to be talking about intuition, but I'm also going to share some of my personal journey and stories with intuition so people get a better sense of what it kind of looks like and how it shows up. Although it shows up for everyone differently, I think the principle, as in you don't get all the information beforehand, is pretty much common for a lot of people. So I'm just going to share my insight and take on it because I know it's something that we all struggle with at times, because we live in a world where we want to plan everything out, figure everything out, execute it, be able to logicalize it, rationalize it, and know exactly how it's going to go. And that's not the way intuition works. So we'll delve into it, and like that, by sharing some of my story and how it felt for me and what was going on in my mind, hopefully might inspire you to be a bit more curious about your inklings or nudges or feelings or thoughts that drop in, and maybe be a bit more curious about them, or be okay with trusting some of them and following some of them, because intuition is so powerful. But before I jump in and delve in further, just a reminder that if you wish to join my mailing list, go to my Instagram handle at Karen Maloney _ and click the link in the bio, and it's top of the list. So, intuition. Why is it so important? Well, for me, it's a faculty that we all have, that we're all born with, that is our own internal guidance system, that doesn't lead us astray or send us wrong. But that doesn't mean that we still may not have challenges or have to face fears. Absolutely not. But it really doesn't lead us wrong, and it is supporting us and guiding us to our best self and what it means for us to live our best life and be ourselves and serve or support others in another way. I believe that's what intuition is really for us, and it can help us, I believe, as well, to divert a lot of pain and challenges and difficulties and different things like that when we do follow it, versus if we ignore it, we can end up in kind of some crazy situations. And again, I'm not saying that by following it, your life is all rosy and easy breezy and you never have a challenge. No, there's always going to be challenges, but they're different, and you have a different mindset and energy around the challenges that show up. So I'm going to share a story just to put into context as well how intuition works and how it shows up for me. So it may help you to know as well that it's not meant to make sense, and it's not meant to have a clear, perfect plan all laid out before you take action. That's not the way it works, because the thing about intuition is it is a faculty we have that we are born with, that is from source, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. It is a faculty way higher than our intellect. But the thing about this faculty is often we cannot put into words why we are feeling the way we're feeling, or why we're feeling drawn to doing something, or why we feel like we are completely changing our lives and taking big risks, quote unquote, when you don't have the language to explain it, or it doesn't seem logical or rational or whatever. But that's the thing about intuition. You get the information afterwards. So, for example, for me, being in Mexico now, again, this is 1,000,000% a following of an intuitive call that I got. So at the end of 2019, I all of a sudden had this feeling, and for me it's a feeling, it's just an inner feeling, sensation, knowing that I can never put into words, that I don't know why it's coming up, but it's like it's all up in my energy, in my field, and I just feel it. I feel this energy surrounding me with the message of Mexico. And it was like the end of 2019, November, and I was just all up in my grill. Like, I was like, where is this coming from? Like, I have not been thinking about Mexico. Yes, I've always loved Mexico. And yes, I always felt like, or of all places I've been to, it was definitely somewhere I wanted to go back. It's like it always had a piece of me, or I had a piece of it since I was there in 2006. But this came out of nowhere, like literally out of nowhere. And I knew at that time that it was calling me, but I also knew it wasn't just a holiday. It wasn't just a holiday that was calling me, oh, go on holidays to Mexico. It was a feeling of living there for a while. I was like, okay, I'll sit with it. And I remember that Christmas, a friend of mine got married, and I remember I mentioned it to one or two friends that I might be moving to Mexico. And I had no flights booked at that stage or anything, but I was just kind of sitting with it and just feeling into it a little. And it's not that you always have to share what's coming up for you. I shared because I just wanted to, not because I was looking for their opinion to tell me what to do or not to do. Because again, I've trusted my intuition for so long that I know to trust it, and it doesn't matter what anyone says. So that's not why I was sharing. I was just kind of, I suppose, putting it out there in one sense to see, was it an absolutely insane idea? But all of them were pretty excited about it. So that was fine. Then it came to January 2020, and I was like, okay, now it's time to book flights. And, you know, I have been on this inner spiritual, intuitive path, whatever you want to call it, for a long, long time. And especially in the last couple of years. It's who I am. It's a pure lifestyle. It's just innate to me now. But I still have that human mind as well. So when it came to January, or even first when it first came up, but especially when it came to booking my flights, I had all these fears going around my mind going, what the hell are you doing? You're mad. This is insane. Why the hell are you going to Mexico? This makes no sense. This is madness. What are you going to do? Blah, 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 blah. So it's not to say I just had this feeling and I knew and off I went. No, I still had to notice, observe, and move through all the fears. So when it came to January 2020, I was like, okay, I have to book flights. And because I had that mind that was full of fear and thoughts going, what the hell are you doing? This is mad. I was looking at flights, or wanting to look at flights, for like May, June, July of that year. So my mind would have time to acclimatize and I would get used to this idea. But when I was booking my flights, I kept hearing this voice that said, it has to be January or February. It has to be January or February. It has to be January or February. And I was like, oh. So I was terrified, but I knew to trust. And so I booked my flights for early February. And I got here at the beginning of February 2020. Obviously before anything of the pandemic and any of that, almost 2 years later now, at this stage, I am so eternally grateful that I listened to the call, that I got here before all the mayhem, that I trusted what was calling me, and I pinch myself nearly every day because I just love it here. I love the language, I love the energy, I love the people, I love the food, I love the climate, everything. I just feel so at home here. And even before I left, you know, I was saying to my mother, I was like, I don't know why Mexico, I can't explain to you why Mexico over Spain, because Spain is obviously the easier option. They speak Spanish as well. They have a better climate and it's closer, and I didn't have to worry about visas. So it was like so easy. That was the logical solution. But it wasn't calling me. It was Mexico. So like I said to my mother at the time, I was like, I don't know why it's Mexico, but I need to go. That's where I'm being called. That's where I'm being pulled. So it has to be there. And if it doesn't work out, well, then I can go to Spain. Then I can try that and it'll be easier. But again, trusting your intuition, your guidance, I'm not in Spain. And I don't have any intentions of going to Spain because it is Mexico. It is here and I love it. And it's funny because obviously I love my family and my friends and I love Ireland. I think it's really, really cool. But I've never felt at home there. And I certainly didn't feel at that time that I wanted to live there any longer. I was ready to move because I had been living back in my hometown, but also no other city or place in Ireland was calling me, or in Spain. It was Mexico that came up. So again, it's the importance of trusting, because I could have taken myself out of it and said, well, Spain is kind of the same. It's same, but different. So I'll just go there because it's easier. But I didn't, because I trusted that it was Mexico, because that's exactly where it was calling me. Like I say, I moved through my own fears. I listened. I got here and I've been so happy here ever since. And again, that's not to say there's no challenges. And certainly when everything was kicking off with the pandemic, it was really scary. And I really had to go within and see, am I going to stay or should I go back home? And again, I'm so glad I stayed, because that initial fear, it made sense for me to go home because everything was so unknown all around the world. And when the Irish ambassador, rings you on the phone asking you to reconsider your decision to go home, that's a lot of fear. That's a lot of uncertainty and worry to sit with. But I did. I went in again. I listened to my intuition, to my gut, to my soul, to the messages I was getting. And I got the message to stay. And that was a big challenge for me straight away. When I've been here, not even 2 months. Everything started here a bit later than in Ireland. So not even 2 months here, been faced with that choice. Do I run off scared home, or do I actually trust my calling, that I was called here at this time, and trust that it's okay for me to stay right now? And again, I'm so grateful I did, because even things when it comes down to visas and how it has all just worked out is incredible. So obviously during the pandemic, you get a 6-month tourist visa when you arrive here from Ireland. Because when I was coming, I had no idea. When I was saying goodbye to friends and family, I was like, I don't know. I have this calling to go to Mexico. It's to live there for a while, but I don't know how long that is. That could be a month, that could be 6 months, that could be a year, that could be 10 years. I don't know. So I'll see you when I see you. So I came on my 6-month visa because it didn't make sense for me, and it didn't come up for me to look into doing a temporary residency visa or anything before coming, because that's a process. It's not very difficult, but it is a process that you have to start outside of Mexico. It doesn't have to be your home country, but obviously it would have been in the embassy in Ireland. But that wasn't coming up for me. So I came on my 6-month visa. Then obviously the pandemic happened and everything was shut down. So the Mexican government and immigration were giving another 6 months to any tourists or people who were stranded here on tourist visas. So that was great. It was very easy. Just went to the immigration office in Mexico City, filled out forms and got another 6 months. Brilliant. I was delighted. I didn't have to do a border run. So then when it came up to that 6-month visa coming to expiring, again, I was like, am I going to have to leave for a bit, do a border run and come back? But the immigration have started a program for people who are still in the country for whatever reason and have a tourist visa that's expired or about to expire. They can apply for this temporary residency program and get their temporary residency without having to leave the country. So again, I was like, oh my God, universe, thank you so much. So now I have my temporary residency visa. I didn't have to go through as many rigmaroles as I would have if I was at home, and I didn't have to leave the country. So these are the kind of synchronicities and things that line up and just work out for you when you trust your intuition. And I'm just like, so grateful. It's been, again, not without challenges, but it's been pretty easy versus if I got that call when I was booking my flight in January, I didn't listen to the January or February message and I booked my flight for June, July or August or May or sometime later in the year. The reality is I wouldn't have come. I would not have come mid-pandemic. There was just too much fear. There is no way I would have come. So where might I be? I don't know. I could have been at home still. I don't know, but I know it would have been not so very pleasant. And even just to open up the conversation a little bit more, the perspective, the very reason that I even studied Spanish in the first place, or that I even came to Mexico in the first place in 2006, I never had any intention of traveling. I never had any intention of learning any language or anything. Like languages I didn't really have a love for or anything like that. But I remember when I used to be always freezing in Ireland growing up as a child, and I used to always ask my parents to build a new house and they were like, no Karen, put on another jumper. And I don't know what it was, I just always felt so cold with the weather most of the time. And I remember the first time we went on a family holiday abroad. We went to Tenerife. I don't know, I could have been 10 or 11. And I remember just being in my swimming togs all day, every day, and just being so warm, not being cold for a second, and just loving it. And I remember one day lying by the pool with my mother, and I turned to her and I was like, Mom, what language do they speak here? And she said Spanish. And I was like, I'm going to learn Spanish. Now, I was 10 or 11. I never, ever, 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 ever thought of that moment again until I was looking at my CAO forms for university, because I was like, I have no idea what I want to do. I had major issues with the Leaving Cert and how it's all set up in the first place. In my head, I couldn't compute why exams and a score I got could determine what I could and couldn't do with my life and what career path. So I wasn't rebellious. I did it, but it just didn't compute in my head. So I had said to my mother as well, I was like, look, no matter what happens, even if I fail everything, I am definitely not repeating, but I'll figure it out. Thankfully, it didn't come to that. I didn't have to repeat. But when it came to the CAO forms, again, I was like, I have no idea what I want to do. Like, how the hell am I meant to know? And that moment, that memory dropped into my mind. And it was like, oh, Spanish. Okay, that's something. Maybe I'll just study Spanish. So I looked for a course based off of Spanish, and I ended up doing European studies in UL, in the University of Limerick, and I spent a year in Spain as part of my degree, and I just loved the language. I absolutely loved it, and I also loved seeing new countries, living in a different culture, learning new things. So that was that. And then when it came to the end of my 4-year degree, again, I was in the same situation. I was like, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. Like, how am I meant to know what career path I want to go into for the rest of my life? And I loved Spanish. I really, really loved it. It took me by surprise. But for some reason, I didn't feel like Spain was calling me back. I felt like, oh, I've kind of been there, done that. And some friends of mine were going to Dubai teaching, and I was like, okay, that's a bit interesting. But also for some reason, I just loved Spanish, and I just had the feeling at that time, if I leave now or don't do something with it now, I will forget the language forever. So I kind of wanted to do something with Spanish, but I didn't want to go back to Spain. That's all I knew. And then one day, through my college inbox, I have no idea who it came from, but it was an email about teaching English in Mexico. And I remember reading it and I was like, oh, Mexico, that's a new country. They speak Spanish. That's what I'm going to do. So I applied, I did my interview, signed a contract, all these kind of things. And off I went to Mexico 2 weeks after my final exam in 2006. And the reason I'm sharing all this is because when I look back now, I can see how the dots aligned. They have all come together and it all makes perfect sense. But at that time in any one of those situations, it did not make sense. Like, I did not know why I was being called to Mexico. And believe me, I was terrified. I nearly wasn't going. It was only my mother's words and advice to me that I actually went. And when I went that time, I thought I was going for like a week and I was going to come straight back, that I was just going to go to see it, but I actually wasn't going to stay because I had a total meltdown and breakdown in those 2 weeks between when I finished my final exams and my thesis and everything. And I had 2 weeks before my flight left. And in those 2 weeks, the realization of what had happened or what I was doing hit me, and I just freaked out. And I was saying to my parents, like, how can you let me go on my own? I'm your only daughter to Mexico. Like, what the hell? And it was only for my mother. She looked at me and was like, well, clearly, Karen, there's something in you that wants to go. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone to all the hassle of doing your interview, applying for your visa, booking your flight, all that kind of thing. So she said, why don't you go? And if it's that bad, just come straight back home. And I was like, oh my God, you're dead right, ma'am. And that's the only reason I left. And now I can appreciate how difficult those words were for her, because the last place she wanted me to go was to Mexico on my own. But the other side of it is, all the times that I was trusting my gut and my intuition, even though it made absolutely no logical sense, whether to me or anyone else, my mother always trusted me and making my own decisions and trusting what was coming up for me. And that was key, because if she hadn't done that, again, God knows where I'd be. So that's the only reason I went to Mexico in the first place, was because in my mind, I was like, I'm going because I have the flight. I might stay a couple of days, max a week, but then I am going straight back home. And, you know, since then, I kind of haven't stopped. I've traveled all around the world. I kept meeting new people and just loved it and felt so alive and learning new things and cultures. And again, you know, lots of challenges as well. But I just really loved the experience. And again, the reason I'm sharing all this is to try put into context how intuition works. It's a feeling, it's a thought, it's a sensation, it's a knowing, but it doesn't make sense at the time. You can't rationalize it, you can't logicalize it. It's just something that's calling you, but it all makes sense afterwards. And like that, I am just so grateful. And it's something that we all have. You know, I'm not unique. A lot of my friends often say to me, they're like, oh my God, you're so lucky and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Luck has nothing to do with it, because we're all being guided. We all have true paths to live, whatever that is. You know, it's different for everyone, but there's no luck in it, because I actually did the work. I faced the fears. I followed anyway. I trusted. I built the faith. And again, the guidance kept coming. The support keeps coming. You know, I'm always led to the next step, and that's how it goes. So I hope that by sharing just this story and putting a bigger picture on intuition and how it works. And let me tell you, you know, I was a person who grew up in my younger years. I lived from the level of my mind. Like, I was striving for perfectionism in every aspect of my life. And my mind and my thoughts they never stopped. I used to overanalyze everything, go into minute detail on everything, try plan out everything. Like, I was such a control freak. Like, that's how I lived. And that's why, and I'm a Virgo as well by nature, so I could do it even better than most people. But that's why as well, it just bamboozles me to this day how I trust it, because it was everything against the person who I was, you know. It was totally not living from my mind, but it's just this feeling and sensation that I can't deny that I knew I had to follow. And for so many years, when I was following and when I was traveling and when I was being brought off to Mexico or wherever I was going, you know, for so many years, I felt like, what's wrong with me? You know, why don't I fit in? Why don't I want what everyone else wants? And when I look back now, I have so much compassion for my younger self, because I can see, in one sense, I knew to trust, but I didn't actually know that what I was doing was actually 1,000,000% right for me. Even though I really enjoyed it, again, that mind of, you know, what's wrong with me? Why don't you fit in? And when will you ever be like everyone else? And, you know, I wasn't born to fit in. And that's what I've learned now. And it's only been through the experience, the trusting, the following, the doing, the taking action, the moving out of my mind and allowing that energy, that guidance to move through me and propel me forward and guide me. It's just powerful. But again, in that sense, I'm not unique. I'm not the gifted child or anything like that. No, we all have it. It is all innate to all of us. But most of the time, we just don't trust it. We're terrified to trust it because we grow up in a world that doesn't value it, especially in the Western world. We value being able to plan and strategize and logicalize and rationalize everything. But that's only one aspect of us, that level of mind. There's also the emotional aspect of us, the physical aspect of us, and the spiritual aspect of us. We exist on all those levels, but the mental mind and the physical 3D world is given way more credence in the Western world than compared to other societies. And we neglect our spiritual side and our emotional side a lot. So it's opening up to that again. And like I say, from the trusting and following, it's not to say it's an easy path and it's, no challenges, no difficulties, it's all good. No, there are plenty as well. But that there's still a reason they're happening. There's always a divine order to everything. Everything. And that. And life is not out to get you, but it's actually constantly supporting you. But again, when we miss our beats and our turns, we can end up in different situations. So I hope that by sharing that, it has helped some people to really maybe understand a little bit more how intuition works and how it does all add up. The dots do connect eventually, but also how it may show up, whether a feeling, a thought, a sensation, just an inner knowing. And then also the reality that it doesn't mean it just happens. We still have to move through that physical mind or that mental mind and the fears and the resistances and talking ourselves out of it. That has to happen. And then you follow and take action. And then you will be guided and steps will unfold. And the amount of synchronicities and there's no such thing as coincidence. And just the way things work out, you're just like, oh my God, this is insane. I can't remember who said it, but it's something like when you live in alignment to your truth, to your soul, it's like synchronicities are your standard. And that's so true because we see there are signs, there are symbols, there are songs, there are words, there are things dropping in all the time. But it's for us to trust them and to act on them and to know that it is guidance for us. So my invitation is, as always, is to get curious, is to follow those inner nudges. Because let me tell you as well, from having spoken to so many people in so many different areas of their life and what they're doing now, if we don't follow it, all sorts of horrendous things can happen. Serious illness, depression, so many things. And I've spoken to so many people who ignored for so long and then ended up, in a catastrophe in order for them to wake up and get the message, and start seeing that, oh no, this life is not conducive for me, for my health, for my well-being, for my finances, for whatever. So yeah, the work is the inner work to move through our own fears and resistances and to let go a little and trust and allow ourselves to be guided and to not second guess the guidance that comes in. It's not always plain and clear and straightforward. Most of the time, I think, what? That's a bit crazy. And that's exactly how it comes through. It feels a bit mad, a bit weird, a bit crazy, but that's it. That's exactly what it is. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you do follow your intuition, how it comes in for you, or if you don't, how might you start listening, or is there something that has been coming up for you a lot that you may just start to follow and trust and take some steps on. So let me know. And as always, if you want to work one-to-one coaching, this is exactly what I help people do, to believe in themselves and have that trust and faith. Reach out to me. I've changed my website, or it's in the process of being changed, But soulpowerlight.com or KarenMaloney.com will be the new one, but maybe it mightn't be fully set up by the time this episode goes out. So still click soulpowerlight.com and it will redirect you, and there on my website you will find more information, or email me Karen@KarenMaloney.com. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you get notified every time a new show is released. Get more information on this week's guest as well on my website www.soulpowerlight.com.